When I say I built this entire gaming computer, I built it. From picking up the lumber at Home Depot, to building the frame, finding a $40 TV off Craigslist, 3D printing a custom front grille, oh, and I actually built a computer inside it. All under $300. What's that? You can't find a video card in that budget? Well, all you need is the AMD 6000 series from 11 years ago. This computer even runs Windows 7, an OS so old there are children younger than it on TikTok. The processor is old enough that it's on AMD's socket FM1. It's the A8-3800. And finally, 4 gigs of DDR2 running at, I don't even know, megahertz. The case was actually a gift from a friend of mine, and since it had already been plastered with some EVGA and Razer stickers, I filled in the rest. To build this yourself, the first part you're going to need is the TV. I went with a 40-inch 1080p for $40. Basically, just make sure it has HDMI and you're good to go. Start with the TV, building a frame of 2x4s around it. Besides a border around the edges, you'll need a couple support beams to hold the TV from the back. Next, I added some uprights to suspend the frame above a pallet. Assembling the TV edge ring is easy enough, but getting that large heavy frame mated to the uprights is a two-person job. Since I don't have a partner for the channel, and a single look from my wife made it clear I might as well use the wood for a doghouse instead, I pulled out an Alienware case and used it to prop up the first edge. Let's talk software. To make the game launch at startup, you don't have to do any fancy terminal coding like in Linux. Any program you want to run at startup, just copy-paste a shortcut in the startup folder. The controls were the hardest part to get working. Remember the 2 controllers for under $40 video? I gutted the red one for the circuit board and buttons, and rather than solder wire extensions, I just picked up a cheap bag of jumper cables. Because this shows up in Windows as a generic controller, and for whatever reason Pinball FX3 only supports Xbox controllers, I had to install Xpatter. Basically, you need to make the controller buttons send keyboard presses. The joystick is mapped to the arrow keys. I've got enter, space, random letters for the flippers, and table bumps, and finally, Alt-Tab and the Windows key. Alt-Tab allows me to switch apps, and the Windows key is so that I can shut down the PC or relaunch an app if it crashes. The game runs at a solid 60 FPS, but then again, so does a modern laptop with integrated graphics. So if you spend over $100 on your video card for this build, you're probably doing it wrong. Some other things you could add to yours if you want to go that extra mile: audio reactive LEDs, thanks to the Pilot LED Music Studio. You can also add better speakers than come with the TV. And with a little bit of soldering, some relays, and solenoids, you could add force feedback for the flipper button presses. I have been surprised at how many people come over, see this, and play it. Sure, you could play Pinball FX3 on your computer, but playing it like this means that people who are not gamers, like my mother-in-law for a real-world example, will actually play this. People who come over to pick up a 3D print will stick around and play this. Come to think of it, everyone who has visited my house in the last 2 to 3 years has played on this pinball machine. There is something to be said for the experience of playing something versus the game of what you're playing. Let me know in the comments what kinds of other specialized gaming PC setups you'd love to see next. If you build one yourself, let me know. I'd love to do a follow-up at some point in the future and link back to everyone else's videos. Check back to my other video playlists, and if you need some 3D printer filament, check out my recommendations on the review page at 3dpc.xyz/filament.